Have you ever had the experience where you are on point Monday through Friday, got all your workouts in, you prepped all your food, and you are feeling great, and then the weekend hits and it's like a switch flips. It just turns into eating whatever, skipping all your movement, and telling yourself, I'll just start fresh again on Monday. Does that sound familiar? That was me for years. Today, we're going to learn how to make weekends work for you instead of against you. I can't wait to share this information with you. I'm going to teach you exactly how to stay on track, especially on the weekends, without feeling like you have to give up everything you love. Let's dive in. So I see this cycle all the time. Women who feel like they're doing everything right, but they can't figure out why they're stuck. The truth is, your results don't happen just Monday through Friday. Your weekends are 28% of your week. I had a client, let's call her Sarah, who was crushing it every week. But every Friday, she felt like she had earned a break. So happy hour would turn into way too many drinks and a burger and fries. She'd wake up bloated and sluggish on Saturday, which wouldn't inspire her to eat very well. She'd just go to the diner and have some comforting pancakes. She'd forget to eat lunch because she was so busy out and about. And then by dinner time on Saturday, she had already gone into full I'll start again Monday mode. And it was the same cycle every weekend. Did I tell her that she needed more discipline? Absolutely not. She just needed a better approach. I gave her some pictures to work with, which is what I'm about to give you. Your brain loves pictures. It's going to help you learn and remember. So typically when we're talking about our nutrition or our fitness plan, we use the words staying on track. I love those words. It conjures up in my mind a literal train track. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Railroad tracks. So train tracks consist of two parallel steel rails set a fixed distance apart, connected by railroad ties, also known as sleepers, and supported by ballast, which are little rocks and gravel. This fixed distance apart, these railroad tracks, are your behaviors, your eating patterns. Very similar to my rubber band theory. So if you're watching on YouTube, this is my rubber band theory in action. If you're just listening to me, then imagine I'm holding a rubber band. These are your eating behaviors. Now, imagine that each side of this rubber band is an extreme way of eating. One side is a lot of restriction, and the other side is totally anything goes binge eating, okay? If I go really far stretching towards restriction, I'm inevitably going to be more likely to snap back towards brain shutdown mode, eat whatever I want. And in the same way, the further I go with eating whatever I want, the more likely I am to want to restrict really hard to feel better. And I'm going back and forth constantly, which will eventually weaken and snap my rubber band. Instead, I could just keep this nice tautness in the middle where I have an even amount, a nice equal amount, I should say, of self-restraint because of self-respect and indulgence because life is good and so is food. Okay? So keep this image in your mind because this is essentially your railroad tracks. This is the even distance that we need between these tracks. The connections, like I said, were the sleepers, the railroad ties that hold that distance, the same distance apart, are the strategies that you employ to structure and systematize yourself all week long. They're going to be the strategies that I give you when I finish this little analogy. The ballast, which is the loose stones or gravel under the tracks, support the train tracks. They are your belief system. They are your identity. So think of all those little rocks as all your different beliefs about eating, about fitness, about who you are. And I really want you to get this because these stones in the track ballast have a characteristic shape, size, and texture. No matter what part of the world a train is in, these are not random rocks. These are actually interlocking stones And if they were any other shape, size, or texture, they would compromise the integrity of the tracks, which would be a disaster for the trains. Fun facts, right? Like, we think these are just random rocks, but they serve a huge purpose. You can't just throw a bunch of rocks on a railroad and be done with it. In the same way, you can't just throw a bunch of random beliefs out there, meaning adopt just about anything, and think that you're going to act in accordance with someone that has really well-balanced eating patterns. I hope you're following with me here. So remember that railroad tracks are exposed to unpredictable elements all year long. So are you. These tracks withstand a lot of stress and pressure. So do you. They also help with various other things, these little rocks. They even out load distribution. They absorb vibrations from the train like a cushioning. Think like comfortable ride for the passengers. They drain water out so that the tracks aren't corroding. They absorb noise. They minimize heat expansion, and they prevent vegetation growth. So these little underlying ballast rocks are super important. These little rocks, which symbolize your beliefs and your identity in railway travel world, they hold it all together. And in your life, they do as well. They hold your strategies and your behaviors together, and they make for a more comfortable ride for you. So this is what it truly means to stay on track. You have a nice even distance between the two styles of eating, extreme restriction to overindulgence, okay? You have strategies in place, those are your railroad ties, and then you have the underlying beliefs, those ballast rocks, which support the whole system. So cool, right? Get that image in your head. So let's get into some of these strategies. So first off, we have to assess how you eat on Monday, because inevitably how you eat on Monday is going to affect how you eat on Saturday. So if you are extremely restrictive and super perfect on Monday and everything's exactly right, and I must have nothing that constitutes a quote unquote unhealthy food, that actually makes you more likely to need nutritional relief by the weekend. Now, there are times, especially because my company does more of a root cause approach, that we do utilize protocols and use nutrition for healing, for restoring balance in the body. So in those times, just knowing, hey, I'm going to have a week or several weeks or however long it may be of being more structured, more set in place. I'm not talking about those times. I'm talking here about the majority of your life. Your lifestyle. So I just want to give you that disclaimer here. So we don't want to get to Saturday and feel like we need relief. We need to decompress. We need to relax. So truly, if you're starting off the week super, super, super strong, this sounds kind of counterintuitive, I would encourage you to sprinkle in more of what your weekend, ideal weekend, would look like on Monday. What we do with our clients is we encourage them to have indulgences without overindulging. We really want you to have a satisfaction factor every day. So indulgences are going to be really personal. For me, an indulgence is like having my coffee a certain way, or having my yogurt a certain way, or having a piece of dark chocolate after lunch. It could be different for you. So it's not like this big ordeal, but having these little things throughout the week don't require me to need to go off track on the weekend. My weekend looks just like my Monday because my Monday isn't so tight and quote unquote perfect. I hope this is making sense. I also encourage you to start with an abundance mindset. Really start cultivating this and savoring food, especially if you have events on the weekend. I'm not telling you to skip out on anything. When you have an event or you're eating something really special at home, especially when you're eating food that you would consider to be off track, I really want you to slow down and savor the flavors. Slowing down improves digestion and absorption. It helps you to enjoy it, to not go into feelings of guilt. It cues you into when you're actually full so you don't crazy overdo it because you're just so excited to have something so different. We don't want to shovel things in, like go into brain shutdown mode and then end up with bloating and slowed down bowel movements and then feeling a lot of guilt and remorse afterwards. We want to stay in what I call our power position, feeling very empowered. So if you're going to eat something that you consider to be off track, you feel empowered. You're being proactive with this choice. So technically it is on track. And you're not being reactive by just going, well, I can't control myself. That's what we want to avoid. I used to be totally out of control. So I really want to encourage you here that I used to not just like go a little off track. I used to binge eat on the weekends. So I get the struggle here for real. The other thing we want to do throughout the weekend is to have the same structure and timing to our meals as much as possible. Breakfast is the easiest meal to keep momentum going with because there really are a lot of options that are healthy but also protein dense. Like, for example, my kids cannot get past protein pancakes. They just love them so much. I had protein pancakes this morning. So you can find ways to eat really delicious special breakfast food without it being off the rails. So I would start with keeping breakfast really solid as much as possible because momentum is truly a thing with a health routine. We're not flipping the switch off or on, we're just turning a dial. So sticking to our normal meal timing is super helpful so that we don't get ravenous and go into that brain shutdown mode, eat whatever I see, might as well, it's the weekend, I deserve it. When you say things to yourself like, I earned it, I deserve it, you can look at the flip side of that and go, I also deserve to feel healthy, strong, and empowered. I also earned the ability to stay in my power position and be really intentional with my choices. I have worked hard to get to this point where I feel good about every choice that I make. Like I've put in this effort to become the person that can think ahead like this. So there is a little bit of talking to yourself in advance and going, what do I actually believe I am capable of? I know for myself, I used to believe that I couldn't make it through the weekend. So just starting there with thinking the weekend is for me. The weekend sets me up for success. The weekend is for me to prepare. There's refreshment. There's opportunities for me to feel really good on the weekends and to feel like the fit person I want to be. Like that vision of yourself that I talked about in our first episode. When you have that vision, you can start becoming her. So back to the strategies. We've got our strong breakfast, great meal timing. We've assessed the fact that we don't want to be super restrictive all week long because that'll make us want to pull our rubber band into the other direction. We also want to be really intentional about our indulgences and create kind of like guardrails for ourselves when we go out. You will be more successful when you go out if you just set intentions. Again, we want to be proactive, not reactive. So the way I do this with my clients is just say, what would be the best outcome for you at this event? Say you have a party to go to. Sometimes they'll say it would be to just have one drink. Cool. Sometimes they say it would be to decide to just have 2 different appetizers. Cool. So when you have these guardrails, it helps you to know I can have what I want and not be lost in the abyss of so many choices and still get something delicious that really helps me to feel like I'm enjoying my life. You don't have to eat everything in sight to have a great experience, which brings me to my next point. It's that there's always going to be enough opportunities in your life to have more food. So just think ahead to the future you. Will this be the last weekend where I have the opportunity to eat out? Will this be the last party I ever go to? It sounds ridiculous, but just talking about the future you will help you know how the current you should proceed. In that decision-making moment for myself, I just think, what would the future me thank myself for in this moment? It's Saturday afternoon, you are out with your girlfriends finishing up brunch and they are all splitting all these different desserts. You have a couple bites and you stop and ask yourself, what would the future me really like me to do right now? What would I respect myself the most for? So I'm not saying not to have it. And of course, if you do track your food, if you do pay attention to macronutrients, you can absolutely have things, absolutely. But having a plan to be intentional, especially if you can't track what's in front of you, is really going to set you up for success. That little intention of having a little bit and then stopping and asking yourself the question is going to really change the game for you. Also note that the first few bites of anything are the best. I can tell you when I was a binge eater, I would keep eating, searching for that same wonderful feeling the first few bites gave me, and it never really returned. So I should have just slowed down and enjoyed a handful of bites and just stopped and sat with it. Don't be afraid to just sit with it. That's progress. Recognize the progress in those moments when you just make a slight alteration to your typical behavior. Now, a lot of people like to employ things like calorie cycling, where they do bring down their calories a little bit during the week so that they have more cushion for the weekend. And then overall, you're still in a deficit, because we know that your metabolism isn't about one singular day. It's over the course of time. That is a strategy as well, but it has to be personal to you. It has to work with your lifestyle and your psychology. So just wanted to throw that one out there. Also know that you never really mess up if you're always looking for progress and creating more intentionality for yourself. So we tend to talk to ourselves really poorly about this area of our lives. We use words like cheating, which is a very moral word. I do not like that word at all. And we tell ourselves that it has to be one way to be good enough. So just know that you never really mess up. You never really cheat. You just kind of deviate from your own intentions if you have intentions, right? Sometimes people just walk into a weekend and they're like, whatever maybe. Well, set some intentions so you know if you're deviating or not. And deviating is a lot more forgiving word, because when you deviate, you can then ask yourself some questions like, why did I make that decision? Was I too hungry? Was I just not paying attention? Was I making too much decisions during the day? That's a thing. Making too many decisions causes cognitive fatigue. Your brain does have a limited amount of decision-making skills. So that's why if you systematize and you have these breakfasts planned and you've already set your intentions, your guardrails, you're not going to have as many decisions in the moment. I know a lot of people will also tell you to read menus in advance. That's a great strategy as well, but I want to talk to you at a 2.0 version. So 1.0 is I'm going to be prepared and look at everything in advance. 2.0 is I trust myself and I can walk into every situation and know that I'm going to make a strong decision that aligns with my goals and my future me that I want to create right now. So change the language, start asking yourself the questions, even language like free meals. Like for the longest time, I would use free meals in my coaching. And it basically meant an off-plan meal. A lot of coaches use this word as well. I still don't like that word as much anymore, because free basically means that you're not free the rest of the time and you're always free. And I am that intentional about language. So instead, I just call them self-trust meals, because of course, I want to trust myself. I want to master myself. And most women want the same thing. So if we are deviating from the ideal in our minds or the actual plan, let's not consider it a problem. Let's consider it a way to get some feedback on ourselves. Was I getting a little too emotional? Was I unprepared? Was I not stopping and talking to myself? Was I not setting myself up for success by letting myself get ravenous? Simply getting enough protein, enough fiber, enough vegetables will help you get ahead of the desire to overeat a lot of the time as well. We do want diet variety on the weekend though, so please do plan in your intentions to have some. Two of our human needs, our basic needs, we all need a certain amount of certainty and variety. So don't feel like novelty is a bad thing. We want to work that in intentionally. Micronutrient variety prevents deficiencies. And if you take something out of your diet for an extended period of time, you start to produce less of the enzymes required to break it down. I definitely have had that experience with extreme dieting. It caused a lot of unnecessary digestive distress. So think on the weekends, how can I incorporate some foods that I wouldn't eat during the week, but still fulfill my plan, my allotted amount of food that make me feel good, but have that indulgence quality that I've been talking about? Real quick, let's talk about when you do feel like you've gone overboard and you do feel like you've gone off track. How do you get your train back on track? When you realize, okay, this is going in the wrong direction, I'm not going to feel good about this. First off, self-compassion will do much more for you in changing behaviors than guilt ever will. Secondly, you can change it right then and there. You can start getting on track in the middle of a sleeve of cookies. It's the next bite. It's the next decision. It's the next action. It's the next thought that gets you back on track. So don't make it into a big deal. Also know that it is normal for your body to feel a little different if you eat a little different. And when you have a really resilient metabolism, eating a little different isn't a big deal. Your body regulates quite well. Now, if you don't have a great metabolism, you will feel the effects of off eating a little bit longer. So let me tell you what I mean by that. For every gram of carbohydrate stored in your body as glycogen, approximately 3 grams of water are also stored. Hence the name carbohydrate. So you're going to have more water retention when you have more carbs. Just know that right now. So if you see the scale shift up, normal, probably water, okay? If it takes forever for that scale to come back down, different story. But if your metabolism is in a great place and it wasn't an all-out binge, even if it was really, you can bring it back down rather quickly, just getting right back on track. So that's a good signal right there. So just don't panic when you see the scale shift or your clothing get tighter or you feel like you're being a little puffier. Again, that was just feedback. Wow, now I know what too far is for me. I got a little feedback there, and I'm going to be kind to myself to get right back on track to who I want to be and what I want to accomplish. The next thing for you to do and really get ahead of on the weekends is just move more. Plan to move. Again, we want to use our weekends to refresh ourselves and to prepare ourselves, not just crash and burn. So just plan to not stop working out on weekends, to not miss walks on weekends. I'm not saying you have to work out every day, but if you can get one workout in or get your walking in at least, you're going to feel better. Your head's going to be in a better place. And if you do feel like you have to overeat a little bit at some parties, it's going to be managed very well by your body very quickly. One of the ways you can cause yourself a lot of anxiety is thinking that the way you are right now is the way you're going to stay forever. So I just know after a weekend that I considered to be bad or I didn't do a good job, I would make myself really upset thinking I'm just stuck in this forever. Like my body's always going to be like this. And that's literally impossible. Your body's not going to stay the same. So just flipping it to I'm so aware. I'm going to use this to my benefit. I'm going to learn about myself. I'm going to think back to what could I have done differently? A moment of reflection can change so much for you. Because then you can plan ahead for the next weekend and think, okay, I'm not going to go to the other side of my rubber band on Monday and restrict really hard. Even though it's tempting, I'm going to go a little bit more middle ground so I feel better the next weekend. Give yourself time to change these behaviors, but also remember that the behaviors, the tracks here, and the strategies, the ties, lay on top of the stones, which are your beliefs. So you have to believe I can change. I can be someone that's always on track. I am the one who defines what the track is. I can feel powerful and in control. I can do what I say I'm going to do, and I can trust myself. You have to build those beliefs in. A really good way to do that is to look for past evidence in your life of where you've built similar beliefs in a different arena. So it might be in your family or in your career or in a past experience, like if you did sports or any kind of team effort. If you built in a belief that I can stick to things, I'm consistent, I'm resilient, I have this body of evidence here that I can use to help me build this belief in this area of my life that is my health, fitness, and nutrition. So when Sarah stopped treating the weekends like a vacation from her goals, everything changed for her. Instead of waking up on Monday feeling bloated, guilty, and like she was starting all over, she still felt strong, in control, and actually ahead of the game. It took some time, but she gradually helped herself stay on track. She realized it's not about being perfect. It's about making small, intentional decisions that add up over time. So if you've ever felt like you're doing everything right during the week and you undo your progress on the weekends, think first about our rubber band. And then we remember that our rubber band is our railroad tracks. Our strategies are our railroad ties, and the gravel underneath are the beliefs that hold this whole system together. Build the identity that you are someone that stays on track. You are someone that is in control of yourself. You are capable, you are strong, you are resilient, you can trust yourself. Build that belief, and the strategies and the behaviors will be so much easier to stick with. Let's make weekends work for you, not against you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you are leaving feeling encouraged, inspired, and ready to take one step closer to the strongest, healthiest version of you. If you love this, please share it, please subscribe, or leave a review. All of that means so much to me. Until next time, keep on moving forward, keep believing, and keep overcoming.